We are watching an incredibly strong winter storm that's going to impact parts of the southern mid-Atlantic, even into the Carolinas, Tennessee, northeast Georgia. This could be an impactful storm also into the tidewater of Virginia and the eastern shore. I think you've still got to watch this, especially up towards Cape Cod, and then further to the north and east, we're talking about the Canadian Maritime. So we're going to look at that, and we're also going to talk about how it's going to get cold behind this. No sign of relief that I can see for the cold for many areas of the eastern, at least half of the country through next week. We might get a bit of a break across the central plains and the northern plains, maybe even the southern plains as we head into the next week. But overall, if you look at this, the ridge across the west is persisting. To me, this looks like the weeks of cold continue as we head into February. And the question is, can you get some kind of big winter storm to wrap up with this type of setup? Certainly think it's possible, especially as we stay cold. Another thing to keep note of, really warm for this time of year, is this huge ridge is locked across the west. Okay, I don't really see that breaking down. And let me tell you, you guys in the southeast, the east, this cold could last for quite some time if you were to believe what the European is continuing to say today. Let's look at the newest data on the big winter storm. We're going to start first talking about what's going to be happening here in the east, because I think there's going to be some significant impacts over the next 36, really even in less than 24 hours now at this point in some areas, and then all the way through the weekend. Let's take a big picture and show you where we are right now, and we'll break all of this down for you. The energy that we're watching is just now moving through Manitoba. We're seeing some light snow across the Dakotas. There'll be a little bit of light snow that tries to break out late tonight into early Friday morning into Kentucky and Virginia. This is that piece of energy that finally starts to swing around in the upper levels. A little bit of lake effect snow, some precipitation also into the far Pacific Northwest, also British Columbia and Alberta. But this cold Arctic air reinforced across the Great Lakes is going to help drive our big winter storm that starts to get wrapped up and really deepen as it gets along this baroclinic zone, that temperature difference zone where you really start to see things tighten up and low pressure developing at the surface. The coldest air aloft will be swinging across the Ohio Valley. It could bring some light snow showers, but these upper lows can be surprising. This is what I think could bring some decent snow into West Tennessee, also into western North Carolina, possibly the upstate of South Carolina and Georgia. Don't ever turn your back on an upper low this strong. This can surprise you as we start to focus our attention on this coastal low, which is, by the way, going to drive, I think, what could be blizzard conditions in some areas right near the coast with the wind. This upper low is going to be dropping snow, though. It could be significant across North Carolina and South Carolina heading into Saturday. My confidence is growing here, and so is the National Weather Service confidence, where winter storm watches now have been issued for a lot of this region, including Greensboro, Durham, as far south as Augusta, down to Athens, into northeast Georgia. This is for snow. This is going to be a lot different than the last storm, as this is a much colder system, a lot more cold air. So we're talking about really snow with this type of event versus rain to the south. But you can see winter storm watches extending all the way out here to the Grand Strand, from Myrtle Beach north to Wilmington, even further to the east, into eastern North Carolina to Norfolk, out to the eastern shore. These stop up on the Delmarva at about the Virginia-Delaware border. A few of these watches going into southern Maryland here on the Delmarva, but they do include Richmond, back to Lynchburg, Roanoke, southern West Virginia counties, right here along the border of Virginia, and then all the way back here into northeast Tennessee, including the Tri-Cities, Bristol, Kingsport, Johnson City, down 81, west on I-40 to Knoxville. So if you are going to be traveling in this region this weekend, this could get tricky. Okay, let's time some of it out. Again, the big storm moving up the east coast. Behind this, we are going to be dealing with some precipitation. We're not just talking about the east. I know everyone's not here, but it's going to be cold behind this, down into the south where we've seen the ice. No relief that I see here. Now our blizzard, I'm just going to say it. This is going to, it may not make the definition of a blizzard, which is that reduced visibility for more than 3 hours. I don't know that we're going to get there, but man, it's going to be close as the wind cranks. And listen, Cape Cod could get slammed if this storm stays its course at this point. So close to New York City, but this is just offshore. Down East Maine, I think, has to watch this too, as it looks like we're going to see a pretty significant snow here. Also up into Nova Scotia could get quite a bit of snow. I'll show you that in just a second. But yeah, it looks like some big snow further to the south. I think it's going to miss at least the heavy stuff. Baltimore, D.C., it's all to the south here. It's south of New York. The Jersey Shore could get a little bit Coastal impacts are going to be huge. I don't care where this thing goes. Coastal flooding is going to be a problem. Full moon coming up on Monday. Even though it's, the strength of the storm will be Sunday, the fact that we're approaching full moon is going to be a problem. And then it turns extremely cold behind this down into Florida with, I think we're going to challenge some records across many areas of the South with this Arctic air that isn't going to be going anywhere. And behind this, are we looking at more snow in this area, ridging across the west, still keeping it quiet out here? It's like a broken record here. I don't have anything new to tell you. And if you're looking for precipitation, I don't have that right now in what I'm looking at. In fact, I see more potential for storms in the east with what we're looking at right now with this upper level setup. Let's dive in a little closer. If this is what you're looking for, some of the details further to the east. Here comes that lake effect snow too, downwind of Lake Michigan behind this. Lake Erie frozen up, so not much going on here. There will be some off of Ontario, off of Superior here into southern Ontario. And this, I think, has to be watched. Is this going to be your surprise snow here across East Tennessee into western North Carolina as this upper low and this forcing moves through in the upper levels to give us that lift, especially just out ahead of this upper low? We're talking about East Tennessee, western North Carolina, Asheville, Boone, maybe so with this type of setup. And if you can spread that onto the Piedmont, which is what the European did last night, let me tell you something. You've got your upper low here, your greatest divergence aloft right in this section. So this upper low is going to be an interesting look that could really surprise. Surface low pressure, meanwhile, developing and deepening across the eastern seaboard, just off the North Carolina Capes here. And now we're developing that northeast wind. We're bringing in some Atlantic moisture into a frigid air mass. So this is going to be all snow into Virginia. Now, the question is, the European has really been backing off on the idea of a heavy snow, at least the overnight run, I think, north of Richmond. To me, this looks pretty good. If you were to look into Virginia and go west along U.S. Route 460, it runs from Chesapeake all the way to the western end of the state. I think along and south of this, to me, is going to be the heaviest line of snow. North of that, yeah, there's going to be some snow. And I think even into the Jersey Shore, look how close this is, into the Delmarva. All this thing has to do is shift west 50 miles, and you're in the game here, right along the Jersey Shore, and possibly eastern Long Island. Boston, this is very close, but look at the European, what it did last night. It puts you in the storm, at least with some snow. I think it's going to come down to the next couple of model runs in the next 6 hours to 12 hours, especially as we get into tonight. Once we get that mid-range guidance in, I'll be interested to see if it holds this track. The European's pretty far to the west, but let's just wait and see. Behind this, it turns cold. Let's go ahead and talk about the NAM, by the way, and we'll talk about snow totals. I do like to look at the NAM sometimes just to see what it's seeing. It's a little splotchy on the precipitation here. I think it's doing a pretty bad job, so we'll move on. This is the digital forecast database. These are touch numbers, means they've been edited by a human somewhere from the National Weather Service to the official forecast. More than 2 inches around this circle, anywhere in the blue. Purple is more than 6 inches. So I think right here into the southern Appalachians, across southern West Virginia. Again, I think it drops right here at the West Virginia border, but get down here into East Tennessee, into the mountains specifically. Think those little towns like Mountain City. Think Boone. I think you get to Asheville, those numbers start to fall off a little bit to a couple of inches, but the Smokies, you get up here, you're going to get more than 6 inches, maybe even more than a foot in some cases, especially really high up, 5,000-6,000 feet. There's some pretty high peaks here. But the snow that's going to really cause impacts on travel, I think, is going to be west of the mountains, even down to I-40 to Knoxville, where we're looking at 2 to 5 inches of snow. Get up here into southwest Virginia, western North Carolina, somebody gets more than 6 inches. And then we look at the Piedmont, because here's the deal. That snow could be really impactful for these areas not used to as much snow. Northeast Georgia, Augusta, a couple of inches here, even up to Greenville, Spartanburg, 2 to 5, I think, and then get up towards Charlotte. Some of the newest data. Again, these are touched forecast numbers. This could change a little bit. These are some of the new model data shows different things, but they're going with, I think, lining up with the national blended data, which shows pretty much on this. So close to 6 inches for Charlotte. Those numbers go up significantly from Winston-Salem east from 6, 8, close to 10 inches out near the coast. Down near Myrtle Beach, you can see where you are, close to 2 to 4 inches of snow here. Wilmington closer to 5. So an impressive look across the Carolinas. And then once you get to Virginia Beach, I'm just outright astonished to see these numbers and what the winter storm watches are saying, like 8 to 15 inches of snow for Virginia Beach and Suffolk and Norfolk and Chesapeake and all of these areas here into southeast Virginia, into the Tidewater, with a stiff northeast breeze. The blizzard is on. Even up to Williamsburg, up the peninsula, we're talking about more than 6 inches of snow. Once you get north, listen, I said along and north of 460, I think once you get up here, you take 64 up to Richmond, those numbers fall dramatically. Even more so once you get up here towards Charlottesville, get up towards the Shenandoah Valley, Harrisonburg, those numbers fall off significantly. Also Fredericksburg. But I think south of Beckley, you get into southern West Virginia, especially here into western North Carolina, those numbers, at least the odds of seeing snow go up. Here's a tighter look here at the forecast, the official forecast for the D.C. metro into the New Jersey area. You can see how that 2-inch line pretty far to the south, D.C., Baltimore, just a trace of snow in your forecast right now. And further to the north and east, again, watch Cape Cod. Now we're getting pretty far out. I'm going away from the actual forecast because we're moving into, look at the time above me, into Sunday. European is hugging that snow right near the coast, putting close to 6 inches into Boston, putting more than a foot out here into parts of eastern Mass into Cape Cod, and then crushing down East Maine here, especially right along the coast with close to a foot of snow. That snow continues further to the north and east. You get up here into Nova Scotia, you get up into New Brunswick. I mean, we're talking about more than a foot of snow in some cases. I had to look at this and go, is this right? 23 inches of snow, or this centimeters? For my Canadian friends, I'll flip it to centimeters. 60 centimeters being printed on the latest European here in the parts of the Canadian Maritimes. Now, listen, I don't know that we're going to see exactly this much, but this is going to be a really strong storm, and it's going to affect a lot of folks. This is the European data. I'll leave you with this, and then we'll move along because I do want to show you what the European is doing. I think this is an interesting look. Look how it's really leaving a snow hole here. I don't know. I think we watch this over the next couple of runs, but we're still talking about 4, 5, 6 inches of snow. You're just not looking at 6, 8, 10 inches of snow on the newest print of the European that ran this morning. This would be last night's run. It still kind of has that look, but I do want you to focus on something that I think is of interest. It's that upper low and that snow that's showing up further to the west, back across the Western Virginia, East Tennessee, Western North Carolina, trying to put down a foot of snow into Charlotte. I don't think, listen, I think at this point, because there are so many different options and opportunities here, you look at the blended data, and it's going to be much flatter. Okay, it's not going to show you those extreme numbers. At the same time, I don't think you discount what the operational runs are doing, right? So, in over 24 hours, these are your 24-hour snow totals. But back to the Kuchera version, which uses the fluffed version, it takes into account that it's going to be really cold. It's easy to see how you could see nearly 10 inches of snow back into this region. And, hey, into the upstate of South Carolina. Let's just stick here for just a second. If this were to come to pass, I mean, are you going to get a foot of snow into Greenville, Spartanburg, up to Athens? Are you going to get 8, 10 inches of snow? This puts snow even into Atlanta. Okay. Winter storm watches, again, are out much further to the east, not including Atlanta. But you can see why the National Weather Service is putting these winter storm watches out pretty far to the south, too. I would argue, I mean, look, Macon is here. Good grief. Getting northeast of Macon, and you're in winter storm watches for heavy snow. Impressive looking. And a lot of cold weather advisories. And behind this, it's going to turn really cold, too, into the south. Let's look at that. And again, this is the European operational run that we're looking at. Back to the west, some light snow here diving in. And I don't want to just leave you guys out. Not much snow going across the central U.S., but boy, is it going to be cold. And we're going to follow this cold east. Below zero temperatures, again, as we head into tomorrow morning across a lot of the northern plains and the upper Midwest. Still cold in the south, and a reinforcing shot of cold as we head into Saturday. It's like insult to injury back here where many folks are still without power. Look at these lows. Below zero across Oklahoma and Kansas. Highs in the single digits and teens. Will stay in the 20s in Mississippi on Saturday. Also into parts of Alabama, Georgia. Cold weather moving into this region. There will be some relief next week. It'll start across Texas and West Oklahoma, and then move into Arkansas and Louisiana, but that cold gets reinforced further to the east. Cold times ahead, my friends. January feeling like January, not quite across the west, but certainly in the east. Look at these temperatures as we head through Thursday. These would be your high temperatures sometime this afternoon, so it's not going to get very warm. It's no wonder the Great Lakes have so much ice on them for this time of year. It is downright cold. The ground is getting hard and frozen in many areas. I'd love to hear in your comments what you think where you are. Heading into tomorrow, there's a look at your temperatures, and then look at the cold moving into Florida. Temperatures could drop into the 20s as the hard freeze sets in. More to come. Got to run, guys. See you next time. An update coming again tonight. We'll talk about the new snow totals, so subscribe.